In today's video, I'll be covering 5 steps that you need to take in order to become a go-to-market engineer. And specifically, this is answering one of the most frequent questions that I get inside of my Unlock Clay community and also inside of my LinkedIn direct messages, which is, how do I become a GTM engineer? Just to give you a bit of context, if you're new to this channel, my name is Tim. I run an agency called B2B Boosted, which is one of the first UK certified Clay expert agencies, which implements Clay as a service. So we are known as a GTM engineering agency. Now, over the last year, I had the chance to teach Clay to over 500 people already inside of my course. I've got over 40 different case studies and testimonials for my agency business. And I had the pleasure of onboarding over 5 different GTMEs that went on to then pursue their own careers. And I've still got a couple of GTMEs that work in-house for my agency right now. But I went on to train over 40 different folks that are now go-to-market engineers. I'm going to be sharing 3 LinkedIn profiles on my screen right now, so you can just, in case, pause. You may choose to type in their names into LinkedIn just to see their LinkedIn profile. So we have Camille over here. We have Pablo Ferrer, who works as a GTM engineer for Enablement, which is quite a big Clay agency. And then we have Matthew Joseph over here, who's a Clay expert as well after completing Unlock Clay. So for just a bit of context, this is why you may choose to listen to me. And now let's just jump into what I've learned having spoken to over 20 go-to-market engineers in the last month alone, whilst preparing to research this video and give you a bit of insights into what I believe it takes to become a go-to-market engineer. So first of all, there is no single path to becoming a go-to-market engineer. You could come from literally any background. It's too early of a role right now to define it by a specific path. So if you don't have any experience in sales or if you're not particularly technical, it doesn't really matter as long as you can improvise and you can get grasp of new skills pretty fast. And then secondly, most GTMEs, as I came to find, stack their skills in the same order. So that's why I'm talking about 5 steps in this video, because I think those 5 steps are 5 different skills that you need to stack one after the other. So the first thing is that I bet the 99% of great GTMEs start by either having a sales background or software engineering background. So in other words, you either have sales acumen or you're technical. Typically, it's very hard to find people that are both, but right now I would ask you, are you technical or do you have a sales background? Because in my opinion, over 90% of GTMEs at least will fall into one of these 2 buckets. If you're neither and you have not had any sales experience or any sort of technical background, I would recommend probably starting with just getting a bit of sales experience in the first place. Because for me, having worked in sales 3 years before starting my Clay agency, I find it super, super useful because I've been in the shoes of SDRs, account executives. I understand how they think. I understand the inefficiencies in the sales process. And hence, it's a lot easier to then be able to automate a lot of this stuff because you've been in their shoes before. So that's the first thing. I believe the first thing that you need to realize is what's your background, because that's your competitive edge. That's what makes you empathize better. So if you're a software engineer, you may find the HTTP APIs inside of Clay a lot easier, for instance. That's your form of competitive advantage. As opposed to that, if you worked in sales before, your sales acumen is your competitive advantage. And you really need to lean into one of those 2. And I find with Cadian, who works for my agency right now, and once again, I'll show you his profile later on as well, he's a killer go-to-market engineer because he has both a blend of this like no-code, this no-code automations background, and he's got the sales acumen having worked as an account executive before. So ideally, you're looking at both of these backgrounds, but you need to make sure that you double down on that and you know where your strengths are, because most people are either good at one or the other thing. So you need to double up on what you're actually good at. Now, the second thing that I find most go-to-market engineers learn after, having any sort of stint, be it working in sales or in some sort of engineering role, is that you realize the potential of go-to-market engineering when they discover something like web scraping. For me personally, the biggest highlight has been learning this tool called Instant Data Scraper, which is the simplest tool out there. And just for a bit of context, if I just show you right now on a website like the Clay experts directory over here, all I can do is, instead of like pulling the details about each one of those Clay agencies here, I can just click on the Instant Data Scraper Chrome extension. And inside of this new tab over here, I'll have the list of every single Clay agency over here, and I can download it as a CSV file. And before I know it, I have a CSV file that I can import into Clay, so I can find websites of all of these Clay agencies to hit them up and ask them for a go-to-market engineering role, for example, right? Well, this was the first aha moment for me when I realized that, hey, this thing called web scraping exists. It can automate what most sales reps are doing, which is just pulling information manually from a website into a spreadsheet, and then pulling it into Apollo, then pulling it into Sales Navigator. You get the idea, right? Nothing really compares to the dopamine spike after discovering a tool like this. So naturally, after you discover the more basic scraping tools like Instant Data Scraper, you will also come across some other intuitive scraping platforms like Apify, Phantom Buster, Octopass. And these are like the gateway drugs into the world of GTM engineering. Now, for context, I'll be giving away these slides so you can get them underneath the video as well. Over here, I talk about 30 different ways to scrape data. I'm not going to go through every single one of those, but you should be aware of every single possible way of extracting data from websites. So for instance, if you're looking to scrape LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you're probably going to use something like Prospio's Chrome extension. But if you're looking to scrape Google Maps, you're probably going to use something like Outscraper. So for the purpose of this second skill, which is web scraping, you just need to situationally know what specific tool to use in what specific context. And if you ever struggle with it, I have this Unlock Clay GPT, which is completely free. I can link it down below as well. You can just basically give it some context and say, I am trying to scrape Google Maps. What tool do I use, right? So as an example here, and let me just go to the other tab so I can answer this for you right now. Like if you ask this question to me, I would say go use something like Outscraper, go use Serpa Dev or one of these tools, right? And then guess what? Straight away over here, it will tell you straight away, go use Outscraper. It will give you a video link showing you how to use Outscraper over here as well, right? And then it will give you some alternatives like Phantom Buster and Serpa Dev as well with demo videos. So if you are struggling and you haven't really tried web scraping as much before, just rely on this GPT, ask it some of these questions. It will always give you an instructional video. It will give you some free credits where possible, some extended free trials as well. That's something that I've got mainly for the Unlock Clay students, but it's something that you could benefit from as well, I suppose. So in a nutshell, the second skill, as I just mentioned, is web scraping. And you need to be very good at understanding situationally which web scraping tool to use in order to pull data from which website, because 99% of the time, you would need to scrape something in order to source that data to be put into Clay after. And as soon as you scrape that data, you can then import it into your Clay table. Now that you understand web scraping, you need to do something with this data. This is when you meet Clay, you start flirting with it, you start playing around inside of it. You may start with the Clay cohort program. You may watch a few videos from my Clay for Beginners playlist on YouTube. You may build a few test lead lists in Clay. I encourage you to know what ChatGPT is, how to use ChatGPT and Clay agents, learn how to use filters, run an email waterfall, experiment with all the different enrichments, learn how to use write to other table, look up multiple rows from other table. Those are two enrichments that a lot of newbies get completely wrong. Learn how to use formulas. I have a 25-minute video showing you how to use formulas. And one day you will wake up thinking that you need to know Clay properly, because a lot of the time, if you're doing something like this, you're just piecing together knowledge through hundreds of different tutorials. And this is where I would recommend that you consider investing in a paid course. Now, I know the landscape pretty well. There are a lot of different options of how you could go about learning Clay. In my opinion, Unlock Clay is the best way to do it, and it's the simplest way to do it because it's one course. It's literally just £100. It gives you a 30-day money-back guarantee in case if it doesn't live up to the hype. So overall, if you don't want to break the bank whilst learning how to use Clay, the chances are the fastest way to shortcut your Clay learning journey is just by doing Unlock Clay. So of course, as much as I want to pitch you Unlock Clay over here, I do think it will save you a lot of money compared to doing a lot of other courses. And if it does not exceed your expectations or if it does not meet your expectations, I'll give you your money back because I'm really, really big on value. And for that reason, when we have 500 people complete in a year alone, I think it's just testament to how good the course is because most of the traffic arrives from either this small YouTube channel or from just word of mouth and referrals, which just reinforces that it's a good course. Now, by the time that you reach step number 4, you would already have some sort of background, be it in sales, in a software engineering role, something of that sort. You would already have experimented with web scraping. You would have experimented with Clay, and you have so much knowledge and very little application of it. So you have two real options. The first option is just offer a few folks to build them Clay tables in return for honest testimonials. So in that case, it could be like end clients. So it could just be like random startup founders that you just cold message on LinkedIn, and you just ask them to cover the cost of tools in return. So that way you get a couple of testimonials, they get a couple of Clay tables, you can learn all of these GTM engineering skills pretty much for free. And I believe you can also get some social proof in the form of testimonials, which of course in the long term will be good. And after that, as you know, I say this in most videos, you can either build your own agency, become a well-paid freelancer, work for an agency like ours, or start looking for a GTM engineering role elsewhere. I also made a video on how you can actually go about getting some new clients for Clay.com services, which I'll link above right now, which you can see for yourself. And in my opinion, the fastest way to find a job is through just posting your Clay tables on LinkedIn or on the tutorials channel inside of the Clay Slack community. So once again, I also made a video which shows you about how you can start growing on LinkedIn through just starting to post on LinkedIn right now. So if you want to check that out, I'll link it above right now as well. So in step number 4 over here, it's really, really important to get some practical application of your learning. So in other words, it's very, very important to put in some reps to understand how to build clay tables, to understand the kind of bugs that you may have in some clay tables, to have some social proof, to have some people that that you can use as references, so that whenever you get certified with clay certificates or anything of that sort, someone can speak highly about your services. And it's really, really important to just build that portfolio really fast. Now, okay, step number 5 is all about proactive job hunting, which is super, super obvious, but let me just explain. In my opinion, the first thing that you need to do is set up an automation to automatically send emails to hiring stakeholders at companies that are hiring GTM engineers. I know I sounded really robotic when I said that, but if you go onto this link, which you can access underneath the video, wherever you're watching it right now, you will see this Hey Reach campaign that I've created over here, which reaches out to companies with the trigger keywords in the description. And basically, you can just follow along. I think it's like a half an hour video that I've done over here the other day, and it shows you how you can automatically find hiring stakeholders at companies that are hiring go-to-market engineers. And you can just basically just reach out to them and be notified as well through the clay table. As soon as a new role is listed, you can be notified. So if you need to like find their phone number to call them, or if you need to find their email so you can email them, you can do that inside of the clay table automatically. So that's the first thing that I think is really important. I know a couple of GTMEs now that landed their role through just outbounding the companies that are hiring for GTMEs. So I know it is possible. And if that doesn't work, then the second thing could work that I've just showed you here, where you could go on the Clay Expert directory, filter based on whatever industries or whatever geographies you want to, click on the Instant Data Scraper Chrome extension in the top right-hand corner, import this list of companies into Clay, find their websites using a tool like Clearbit, and before you know it, you can then enrich it with, the people that work there, and you can reach out to their founders saying, hey, if I build you a couple of clay tables in return for just practicing my clay skills, would you take me up on that? And a lot of clay agency founders would not be able to resist the temptation of hiring someone for free to build clay tables for them. So if you reach out to them at the right time, chances are they may take you up on that. And another thing worth noting, another thing that I learned from one of the GTM engineers that I spoke to this week is creating a 3-month go-to-market engineering plan for the first 3 months from the point of joining a company. And what I mean by that is a lot of the time, if you make it to an interview with a potential employer that's hiring a go-to-market engineer, most go-to-market engineers would just turn up and answer basic questions, as opposed to, imagine if you come over and you have like a nice little Claude artifact like this, where you have a 3-month implementation plan in mind. And you have like what you will do in week 1, what you'll do in week 2. You have like, you'll sort out pipeline stages, CRM observations. You'll do competitive landscape analysis. You'll review the TAM suggestions. You'll then create a single addressable market. You'll go through triggers and signals. You'll speak to the sales team. You'll speak to the leadership team. You'll purchase the inboxes. You'll sort out email deliverability. If you create a plan like this ahead of an interview, I guarantee you'll stand out from all the other GTM engineers that just turn up and answer basic questions. So I believe that's basically that. So let's now recap the 5 steps and the 5 skills that are required most of the time in order to become a killer go-to-market engineer. The first step is just embracing your background, be it a sales background, technical background, or anything of that sort. Just be able to communicate to an employer the value of your career and your background before becoming a go-to-market engineer, because the chances are that's your form of competitive advantage. Now, the second step and the second skill is web scraping. Needless to say, you need to get good at it. So for that reason, you need to get a couple of clients, a couple of projects that you work on. You need to get in the habit of understanding situationally which data scraping tool to use for a specific data set when you scrape some sort of data set. For that, you could use the Unlock Clay GPT that I just talked about, which will be linked underneath the video right now as well. Step number 3 was clay and just playing around with it. At some point, consider investing in a paid course. Step number 4, we just talked about as well. It's all simply about building a portfolio of clients or any sort of people that you can ask for references, be it working for an agency part-time completely for free or something of that sort. And then step 5, it's all about just being proactive in your job searches, because 99% of the time, a lot of the go-to-market engineering roles are not listed publicly, simply because most of the time they don't attract the right crowd. And for that reason, I know a lot of agency owners that just basically use like Slack channel to ask other agency owners for introductions to go-to-market engineers, because 99% of the time, otherwise, like I get slammed all the time with requests of people saying like, oh, hey, can I build some clay tables for you? And the answer is always no, simply because we hire full-time or we don't hire at all in most cases. Because for me right now, it's very difficult to systemize and structure a business whilst relying on part-time employees. Now, the bottom line is you need to learn data sourcing and web scraping. You need to know Clay. And the best part, I spoke to countless folks about the birth of this go-to-market engineering role, and the TLDR is no one really knows how to hire for this role properly yet. So cheer up. The skill set above will hopefully put you in a good position to become a good go-to-market engineer and to land some of your first gigs or some of your first jobs as a go-to-market engineer. And just embrace the fact that not many people really know how to interview for these kind of roles, what to put on the job description, how to actually structure the first 3 months of onboarding a go-to-market engineer. A lot of the time right now, we get a lot of requests from our clients asking us, oh, hey, how do we actually hire a go-to-market engineer? And it's not something that recruitment agencies can help with 99% of the time because they're out of touch a lot of the time with this, like Clay and AI, GTM space. So for that reason, just embrace the facts that, there is a lot of uncertainty right now when it comes to this GTM engineering role. This can be an opportunity in itself because if you just improvise and you just go on and you learn all of these skills like web scraping, Clay, and all this fun stuff, you apply and go outbound and message a bunch of people, seeing if they're hiring or if they're open for you to build some Clay tables for them. I bet you someone will take you up on that. It's just a numbers game. So yeah, I hope that was encouraging. I hope that was useful to some extent. If you want the slides, it will be the top link in the description down below. Other than that, make sure to like this channel, make sure to subscribe. Other than that, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video if you enjoyed it, comment down below if you have any questions about GTM engineering or anything of that sort, and I will be releasing some interviews that I do with some go-to-market engineers I look up in the Clay space, so stay tuned for that. And if you have any recommendations of who I should speak to, who's a killer go-to-market engineer, who you want me to interview, let me know. I'll try and upload one of those interviews onto the channel. Over and out. Have a good one. Cheers.